Hello and welcome everyone to our Teams tips on hybrid meetings. This is our first time hosting a Teams tip session as a webinar. So we're very excited for today. I know if you're used to attending these sessions from the past year that the look and feel is a little different today. And we chose that on purpose for this session to allow for a little more interactions. That said, we still have a lot of content to cover in this 1 hour time slot. So for right now, you'll notice that you don't have the ability to unmute your camera or your microphone. I know that that's a little bit different, but know that we will have some time where we will enable that a little bit later in the session. So welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started. Let's see here. This is different for me too, and I wanted to share with y'all a new way to share slides and content. And I'm going to go ahead and reshare because I didn't want you to have to look at my face the entire session while we were waiting to get started. But I'm going to go ahead and share this that just launched today. This morning is when we first noticed it. So give me a shout in the chat. Have you already used this feature? Have you already seen this feature? This is considered the side-by-side presenting when you're in a Teams meeting. So it's a little bit different. I'm going to pull up a different window here so I can see the chat. Excellent. So if you haven't had a session with me before, I'm Amanda Pritchard. I am the Microsoft 365 specialist in the Office of Information Technology. And we've been hosting these sessions for over a year now just to get some information out there about the different technology, the different techniques that you can use. And today's discussion is going to completely revolve around hybrid meetings. So making sure that you have that beautiful balance between taking care of people that are in person and taking care of people that are still virtual. And so it's a difficult balance, but we're going to share with you some of those tips. And so for this beginning portion, so that I stay focused, we're going to have everyone's mics and camera muted. Please use the chat. I've got multiple screens, so I am able to see if you have a comment or a question along the way, and we'll be able to make sure and respond to you. So now I have to figure out, so like I said, this side-by-side just launched this morning. So if you're familiar with these sessions with me, you know I believe in experiential learning, and that is what we are doing today, because when I saw that this launched, I could not resist sharing it with you all, because I think that this just different type of engagement and presenting your content is going to be really beneficial to your audience, depending on what type of materials. So the way I have my slides set up right now, this is called a side-by-side preview. And you should be able to see this when you go to share content, and maybe not everyone has it just yet. I just got it today. But when you share content, it's that arrow that's in the upper right corner of your Teams meeting. Underneath that, there's actually, I can't count, there's 4 different types of ways that you can share your content in a different presentation method. So let's go ahead and dig into our material today. So today we're talking about hybrid meetings. If you want to follow along, we sent down a mini agenda to be able to tell you what to expect in today's session. So you all logged in on time. You're all here. We had over 200 register for today's session, so I'm really excited that you're here and you're ready to engage in this critical discussion. So the first item on our agenda was we're going to go over the Teams webinar demo. Teams webinar just launched about a month ago, so it's a fairly new feature. And I'm just curious, if you don't mind, using the raised hand feature in Teams, will you raise your hand if you have already used the webinar feature? I'm very curious to see. And Dominic, looks like we're having trouble accessing the slides. I'm so sorry about that. I'm going to see if maybe Denison, could you post a link to the slide in the chat as well to make sure, and let's make sure that they have access. So I apologize if you don't have access to the slides. So, okay, and for whatever reason, because I'm in this new mode, let's see, raised hand. Okay, we have 1, 2. I was getting worried that maybe you didn't know how to use the raised hand feature, and I was a little concerned about you all. But is it only 2 people have used the webinar feature? So I love that you guys have used it and that you're familiar with it, but it looks like since the majority are not familiar with it, then we will kind of continue on, and I'll go in depth in that demo for you all to see that. In addition, we've put together some hybrid meeting best practices. What are some to-dos and to-don'ts that you may want to follow to make sure that your meeting is accessible and relatable to both audience types. Near the end of our session, if I am quick about everything, I want to share with you a little equipment demo. I'm using a different camera today than what I typically do, and it has some really cool features that I would love to be able to show you at near the end of the session. And then we're going to touch base a little bit on some of our future trainings that we have coming up. Okay, I'm checking chat, making sure there's no questions. Oh, what's the webinar feature? Oh, yes, I'm going to show you just 1 second. An attendee guide, just so that you all know what the expectations are and the rules of engagement for today's session. Please feel free to ask questions. I have that pulled up on the side, so I'll just try to keep a glance. Or I've got my teammates here that will stop me if something is confusing and then you need clarification on anything. Use the raised hand feature. I know that you're not able to unmute yourselves, but we are unable to unmute you. If you wanted to say something, or if you did need to just have a little bit more, needed a little bit more to elaborate on faster than what you could type, you can use the raised hand feature and we will be able to come and answer that question for you. We have a couple of polls throughout today's session just to help kind of keep it engaging. So please participate in those. If you've never used the polling feature in Teams, it's done through Microsoft Forms. It's a great tool to engage with your audience, and it's built in to Teams, so you don't have to go to an outside provider or an outside website in order to use that. Smile, that's a reminder from me. And then at the end, when we do allow for your cameras to be on, you are welcome to turn it on. Just know that we are recording today's session, so if you don't want your beautiful face to appear in our later YouTube videos, then you can keep your camera off if you would not like to appear in the session. So I'm looking to make sure I don't see any pressing questions. So as I mentioned, we're going to be recording. It's going to be in our YouTube channel. We're going to go ahead and post that link in the chat. I get questions all the time on, is it going to be recorded? When can I watch it again? If you need to rewind and go back a little bit and get clarification on any of these features, any of the equipment that we're going to be sharing with you, please subscribe to that channel. The subscription option is the fastest because sometimes after these sessions, I need to lay down. And so I may not be super fast at emailing it out to you. And if you're waiting for it, as soon as we finish processing, we upload that to YouTube. And then usually a day or two after I recover, then we send out the email as well. So if you want to be proactive and get it ahead of time, you can jump on YouTube and get it there. In addition, we have all of our videos broken down by playlist, so kind of thematically. If you're needing more information on Microsoft Teams, if you're needing just our quick tips, which we have launched on Instagram, those are 30-second videos that just give you an introduction to a little bit of information, whether it's on Teams or Office or any of the products that we support. Those are just kind of those quick ones that you can just watch for when you have a few seconds free. And then Microsoft 365, whether you're looking for Outlook, PowerPoint, any of those those bigger products that are on Microsoft 365, we have videos there as well. Okay, so I think I already spilled the beans on this one, but let's go ahead. I want you still to participate in this poll, so I have to find it in my list. I'm going to launch this poll. It's going to, if you haven't used Forms as a polling feature before in Teams meetings, it's going to look a little bit different. So we're launching that now. And it should pop up on your screen so that you can answer the poll. So I know I already teased it out and had a couple of people respond that they are not as familiar with webinars, but if you want to go ahead, it should pop up and then it's anonymous results. So when you pop up, you should be able to click that box and be able to answer. You click the answer and then press submit. Okay, look. And then if you haven't seen that already, it's in the chat as well as on the screen. So it's kind of a fun way to be able to have that engagement with your audience. So it looks like it's still tallying a little bit, but 86% no, only 5% have said, oh, somebody changed, or the math changed. I'm a liberal arts major, y'all. There's a reason I don't do math. So I'm very grateful that Forms does this for me. But it's looking like the vast majority have not used the webinar feature. So I'm going to stop sharing this portion, and I'm going to stop sharing the side-by-side view. So I'm going to close out of just a few things here, and then I'm going to maneuver a few things around just so I can get a better view for you all to show the webinar feature. So I'm going back to chat just to make sure there's no questions. Okay. Polls can be made and sent on the spot. I saw that question. Yes, you can pre-build them in case you've got already too much on your mind and you just need things done in advance. You can pre-build them, or you can do them on the spot. If you're in a class or in a meeting with your team and you just want to ask a quick question, you're absolutely able to do that. So I'm getting some feedback that people are with me in my math skills. There is a reason I have a master's degree in history and not mathematics. So we'll move on. But thankfully, there's a lot of technology that'll do math for me. And yes, I absolutely rely on it. Okay, we're going to start by I'm going to use another one of the new features that have come out today. So the first one you were previewing was a side-by-side. And now you should be able to see me in the standout feature. So the standout feature has me kind of like newscaster broadcast, but now I've got to find where my team's meeting went. So one moment here so I can still see your beautiful chats. Remember, we're learning as we go. Too many things. It doesn't want to pull up. Okay, so Denison, you'll have to stop me if there's a question that's pressing that I need to respond to, because it's in the abyss at this moment. But I'm going to go ahead and we're going to talk a little bit about setting up a new webinar. So the webinar feature is great because it allows for advanced registration. So as soon as you're setting up this feature, it has built-in registration. So to do so, you would just go in the upper right corner, just like you're creating a meeting, and you would set up a webinar. So we're going to actually set one up as I'm speaking. And you'll have to forgive me, y'all see this, but I see over here. So we're just going to do a test meeting here on the side. You can add in any presenters. So if you have key people speaking that you're wanting to highlight, you can add them in so that they automatically will get this invite on their calendar. You can add your date and time, and then any details. This does get sent to the attendees that register, so just be aware if you put something funny in there for the speakers that everybody else will be able to see that. So that is basic way of setting up the meeting. It's really not any different here than setting up a regular Teams meeting. So what you're going to do, because this is a webinar feature and because you want registration, you're going to require the registration. And so that means that people have to sign up in order to attend. So now I'm going to click on the view registration form, and it's of course going to pull to a different window. So let me just move that here. Isn't this standout fun? I feel like I should be on the Weather Channel forecasting, hopefully sunshine. Okay, sorry. So webinar registration. So we set up the webinar part. That was it. It was as easy as setting up that meeting and putting in the meeting details. So that's the meeting portion that people will be joining. Now we're going to navigate to setting up the registration. So I know many of you, like me, typically use Microsoft Forms to gather registrations for events. It's great. I still absolutely love it. This is just a little bit different. So if you don't want to have to follow up and send a separate calendar invite, the webinar does it all for you. Everything's built into this beautiful little package. So you can upload an image if you have a specific image that goes along with your marketing, any of that collateral, you can do that and it appears as a long banner on top. That's about as far as customizing the graphic component that you do in this registration. Then you would add in your event details. So again, this is what everyone would see when they're registering. So this is creating a web page that you would send out to those attendees to have them register. So for us, it's just we're doing a test meeting. You can put your description in here too, because this is what's the first interface that they're going to see when they're looking at that registration. So whatever your description is for your event, and then you can add your speakers in here. And if they have a really impressive bio, you can list all of those details. You can list their title. You can add as many speakers as you want. I went up to about 20 before I got tired of clicking add speaker. So if you have a really large panel discussion and you want all of them to be highlighted and distinguished on there, you are able to list them all out. And then you have the details for the attendee, and you can add different fields here. So for the webinar feature, especially if you're hosting a webinar that might have some people attending in person, you might be hosting a conference and you have some people that want to come in and watch it and watch the presenter live, and then you may have a majority that want to just watch virtually. You can add this customized question in here too to ask and to poll those attendees if they'll be attending in person or virtually. That just helps you better prepare for that event and make sure that you have the right size and spacing in whatever room or venue that you're preparing for. But you can see there's a ton of pre-built questions already in here, so you just can click add and you can put in the pre-built or you can customize your own. The first few are required, and they're required because we're allowing people outside. If that's kind of one of the things that you can do is you can allow external people to sign up. This just ensures, since they may not have a Teams account, and ensures that you have their correct information. So those are automatically required. Then you can determine what other details that you would like to have as required. So after you've put in those details, then you would select Save. And it just reminded me to be sure to invite the presenters because at this moment I don't, since it's just a test meeting. You can edit it at any time. If you see something that, oh, I missed the description, I need to put text here, you can go back and edit and save as many times as you want to. So there's no limit for updating that. Then here at the top, the copy the registration link, that is what you would gather and you would send out to anybody that you would like to attend. That's what you use to promote the event. That's how you share it with this audience. And then if you wanted to, I'm going to click this, but I guarantee it's going to pull over here, and it did. So we'll just take a quick look of this is what it would look like to your attendees. I did not put in a banner at the top. There's no graphic at the top. So because of that, it doesn't display here. But if I had one, then you would see that first. And this is what would go out to your attendees. So it's a pretty nice, clean slate. To join today's session, you all would have filled this out as well. So hopefully it looks a little bit familiar, but that is what we created for you to join for today's session. So I'm going to, Dennis, I'm going to ask you if there are any questions since my team's, let me see if I can pull it up over here. It doesn't like me. Dennis, any questions?
So far there have been only a few questions really. One of them is just about external speakers. If we wanted to have external speakers to invite them to webinars, how would we do that? And as well as like are there any special requirements when it comes to that?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me touch on that one really quickly, and then I'll let you can tell me what other information we have out there since I can't see it. I have too many screens open. It's the same process for inviting external guests as you would in a Teams meeting. You would just type in, I'm just going to use Denison since he's right here. You would just type in, for us, it'd be their name, but there you would just put in their email. So whatever their direct email is, and then they'll be able to join. And the nice thing too about once you register is you can just, when an attendee registers and fills out that process, they just click to be able to join the meeting. So it just eliminates some of those barriers of getting an external guest on. If you've done this in live events before, then you can know it feels like a couple of hurdles that you have to jump through in order to get somebody external onto that live event. This removes that complexity. You just put their information right there, and that will send the invite directly to them. Okay, other questions?
Let's see. That was actually you actually answered another question within your answering that, but there is a question about, is there a way to limit how many people can sign up for webinars or really a face-to-face session?
So that's a great question, and that was mine that I had too. And when I was looking in at testing this, so if we put in, let's go ahead and we'll put in a custom question. Are you attending in person? And then they could be able to fill out yes or no. So unfortunately, there's not a set parameter right now that's built into this. But I'll go ahead and let me zoom out of this. And I was going to show you in just 1 second here. I'm going to show you what it looks like too, to how you gather those responses and how, well, 1 second, let me just make sure and go over a couple things very quickly before I move on to that response, so that you can see. You can't limit, but you can pull a registration report. So I'll show you that report in just one moment. But just to touch on a couple of other options that are available, you can request responses to make sure you want to know when people are registering, and you can allow forwarding. So you can determine if your audience is a very specific niche set of attendees and you only want that group to attend, you can disable that so they won't forward it to additional individuals. And then you can set this for everyone, require registration for none, which wouldn't really be a webinar, and then for people in your organization as well. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. We can always rebuild one, but I was going to go into today's just so that you can see what a real one looks like. I know we were creating our dummy one. Karen, I see Karen asked a question. I was able to pull up my chat. Aren't you proud? Is this mode what is recommended for teaching? No, not necessarily. This is just an option that we wanted to share with you because it is a new feature. Webinars require the registration, so you wouldn't want your students necessarily to have to register for every class session. As of now, you cannot set up a recurring webinar. So just to be aware of that, it's meant for kind of a one-time event. You could do it for all day for a long conference, but it's not set up to do kind of that recurrence yet. It is a brand new feature. It's just 1 month old, so it's just a tiny baby. So they're still building out those features and developing it. And then, okay, I can see the questions. I'm so excited. Is there a way to send a reminder for the webinars, and does that occur automatically? So you don't need to send reminders for the webinar, because as soon as somebody registers, as soon as they hit that register button, it's going to send them a confirmation, and it's going to put it on their calendar for them, which is just a brilliant extra step to save you that time from having to send a follow-up. I still sent a follow-up on Monday, and then to a few people today if they just registered, just to be sure everyone had that information, saw it, knew how to access it since it's new. But it should have sent you a little reminder just before start, just kind of like a regular Teams meeting would, that 15-minute, like, ooh, you've got somewhere to be. So there's not a way currently to automate any more reminders other than what it already has built into the program. There's not a cap on the number of audience members. So other than what, kind of what our traditional large group is for Teams meetings, other than that, there's not that that large number. So I was going to pull here just real quickly so that you can see this is what it looks like if you are, if you've organized that session, and then you can give those rights to additional presenters. And so I know that a lot of times if you're organizing a meeting, you want others to be able to do certain things within that meeting. You want to grant them that access, those rights. So I was able to do that for several people in this session. And then I'm going to pull up the meeting options because this is a fun one that I think a lot of people don't know about. Sorry, it always pulls up in my spare window. Is that size? I zoomed in hopefully plenty. I hope that everyone can see that. I just have to lean out of my little preview for y'all to see everything. So just like in a Teams meeting, in a Teams webinar, you can set up some parameters to control the meeting based on what you're trying to achieve with your event. For today, just to try to help our pacing and move this along, we set up some restrictions. So for right now, you can't unmute your camera or your mic. So if you did have a panel of presenters and you needed that time for your lead speaker to present and then have that open dialogue, unlike in Teams Live, you can allow all of those attendees to be able to unmute and unmic at the end, and you can have that group discussion in a webinar. You can also do breakout rooms in a webinar. So it's a little bit different than some of that functionality that you have in Teams Live. So let's take a look and delve into some of these meeting options. So you can set up a lobby, and what that would do is if you needed a little time before your meeting to get things prepped, pull up your slides, get your music, whatever you need to do, you can only allow certain people, like all of your presenters, if you wanted to come and have everybody together, do a quick conversation before you launch into the meeting and invite all of those attendees to participate. You can set up some restrictions here. Sorry, new feature. So you can set up those restrictions and determine who you want to have kind of that fast path through to your session, or who needs to have limits. And then it just gives you a notification and allows you to admit people into the lobby or have them wait until you're ready. And you can announce the callers. Then you can say specific people can present. So these are this is the crew behind the scenes helping me with doing different recording features and chat features. So they're helping me, so I allowed them the right to unmute and unmic so that we can have that support. So if Denison needed to ask questions to me, he was able to do that. So in these webinars, it's great to go ahead and allow people those rights so that you can have some backup support still, or you could allow everybody. If you have a big webinar and you have a number of presenters, you can allow everybody. You can select the people or only people in your organization. In case you're having a large conference and you have people from other universities, but your department is the one leading it, you may just want your department to be the one to be able to present. So those are just kind of a quick highlights of the controls that you have. You can choose to record automatically if you're like me and you're so accustomed to live events that you forget to hit record. That's an option as well. And then you can disable the meeting chat and then allow reactions if you want to. So that is let's see, I don't know if it's not going to show on the screen, but those are little claps or hearts or whatever features that you want to show. Okay, I'm scanning to see, is there any questions on the meeting options, the controls that you have within the webinar? Can you move where your person is shown on the screen? Like move me? Is that what you mean? Oh, no. So this new feature, watch, do you see? I have a set box that I'm allowed to go in and out of. So as of right now, if you're using this little standout feature, you are given your assigned location and you can't go out, otherwise you get chopped off. But that's good to know for when you're designing, when you're doing layout, and when you're kind of screen sharing. This is an option that's available for when you're sharing your screen. So very careful clarification on that. So what I'm in now is Standout. We also demoed the side-by-side, which is how I started this session. So as of right now, you're kind of stuck within that parameters. Okay. So we'll go ahead and close on that, and then we can move into some more of the meeting details. So I know we had our first poll that we already launched, and so that was built in here. So you can add polls in, you can add certain features in that you want to have available within the webinar. So anything that normally kind of works within Teams, we have found in our testing that it works here as well. So I think, let's see, I'm going to go ahead. So Karen asked, is there anything better that makes this mode, or there's anything that makes this mode better for pre-recording a segment for a class rather than just using a regular Teams meeting? The issue currently, especially, so we tested this, again, we just had access, I had access to this Standout at 10 a.m., so it's been a busy morning. We were testing it out to make sure it was going to work well enough to share with you all today. The Standout feature does not show up in a recording. So by attending live, you all are getting to see this feature and its unique functionality and that others don't necessarily see in the recording. As of now, the recording just would appear like my slides, and then it would have me at the bottom of the screen. So this is a great tool if you're teaching in class and you wanted to point and say, oh, I can't go out of my box. If you wanted to point and say, like, there is where you can see the meeting registration. Or, if you wanted to highlight something, it's a great tool. But if you're looking at having that recording available for a class or available for something else, it will look a little bit differently coming out on that recorded session. So webinar is meant to engage people that are live in person or virtual so that they can both kind of have this shared experience. Yes, there is a whiteboard feature. You can see at the top here, you can use the whiteboard. So all of that functionality that you have within a Teams meeting, mine's going to panic now, of course, that I said. Okay, yay. Okay. Oh, let's collaborate. Okay, y'all draw me some pictures while I talk so that I can be entertained. I would appreciate that. There is the whiteboard feature. Let's see if y'all are able to access that. Is anybody else able to? You make me draw on myself. I will. Oh, nope. Okay. You probably can't access it at this time because I've set restrictions, but I bet some of my teammates will draw me some pictures. But there is the whiteboard, and again, you would have to allow that presenter access because I've set up all of these horrible restrictions on all of you. You're not able to doodle with us at this time. But there's, so any of those functions that you have, you could have and build it into webinars as well. So we're gonna finish drawing, and I'm gonna go back. Let me go back to my calendar here because I want it to pull up to this main page, so that you can see what's really cool about this is that your reports all pull up down here. So we'll just take a look at the registration. Let's see. Oh, it downloads as an Excel, but the attendance. Let's see if it'll pull it up for us while we're in meeting. If I don't make it break. What's really cool about this is that you get to see at a glance how many people viewed. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so y'all can see that better because I know it's kind of hard to see the top of the screen. So you can see at a glance how many people viewed that registration page that you created with the banner or without at top. You can see how many actually clicked on the link. And then you can see out of that how many people registered for your webinar. So these are great stats and data to have so that you can be familiar with, oh gosh, so many people looked at this, but nobody wanted to come. What was wrong with that? Was it, was it not accessible? Was it not relatable? Was it not valued content? And so that's kind of interesting. You can also see who canceled, and then because we're in it now, it's not counting everyone's attendance. I promise it's not just me talking to myself. So right now it just shows one, but it'll give you that name, and then it'll give you the information on people that registered and attended. So that's kind of a neat thing because we had I was popping on and off the meeting beforehand just to check out everything. So it looks like attendance has already started. Um, and so attendance is going to show you just basically the name and when they joined and left. It's not going to give you that department. If you want to have their title, their department, or those details, that's something that you would capture then in the registration part when you build it. You can, any of the data that you're wanting to collect there, that's where you get those details about the unique demographics of your participants, if that's something you're trying to capture. And I did see a question pop up. Can you do breakout sessions and webinars? You absolutely can. We tried that. And Dennis, and I'm going to pitch this one to you because I'm not quite sure I don't know that we've tested it, but in breakout rooms, can you also use the whiteboard feature within that smaller group?
So this is a feature that I haven't fully tested, but if I'm not mistaken, you do have some of the same features as like normal Teams meetings. So if there is a whiteboard, if I'm not mistaken, that individual breakout room will have its own whiteboard that you can work with. But I would have to test that a little bit more just so that I can have a little bit more clarification on that. But if I'm not mistaken, it does, you are able to use the whiteboard feature.
I think so as well, Dennison, but we would need to test it just to be absolutely sure. Everything else that we tested in the breakout rooms seemed to function as usual as it would anywhere else. They have changed. If you haven't used breakout rooms recently, that experience has changed just a little bit. But it does make it really easy now if you're trying to break out large groups to just very quickly navigate and get them through. We had a question that when clicking on the calendar to schedule a meeting, it's called a webinar. Today's discussion is on hybrid meetings in general. This is just one tool to allow you that. When you're looking at your calendar, let's go back here real quickly just so that y'all can see that again. When you're looking at your calendar, what you're going to do is at the upper right corner, you would select the little webinar icon, and that's what you would set up to use this particular tool to set up a hybrid meeting. Okay, so I think that at least gives you a high-level introduction. I'm trying to think. You can still do your categorization. You can change any of those responses, and you can change those meeting options. So I think that we've got at least a good general introduction option for you. So webinars, the benefit of having a webinar is if you want people to pre-register, like today's event, so it's more of event-based. If you want people to pre-register and be able to attend and have it automatically go on their calendar, to be able to customize your registration form to go with and coordinate with the rest of your marketing for an event, then a webinar is a perfect tool to be able to do that. I know there are some meetings that get assigned, but it may not be applicable to everyone. It may not be something they want to participate in. So a webinar kind of allows people to self-select the events that they want to attend and to be able to jump on there. Okay, so I'm going to close on it here. And then Dennison, I think I'm going to close and stop sharing this. Dennison, I think we have another poll. Do you mind launching that while I pull up the next thing?
Of course.
Thank you, sir. And we'll get that poll launched in just a second. And then I wanted to share my screen again with a different preview. Let's see here. I think it's the true or false one. Do you see it? I'm on it. I'm going to grab it. I beat you.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. That's what happens when you ask everybody to do too many things at once. So I just launched that poll. It should pop up here. So when you get a second, if you can go ahead and answer. This is just to kind of gauge your knowledge of that preview of webinars. So the question is, when you create a registration, you must also follow up with attendees and send a meeting request. Is that true or false? Let's see how everybody's going to do. Oh, yay. Good. Y'all rocked it. Okay. Yeah, the nice thing about webinars is that you don't have to follow up in a live event. You do have to send out additional information. So that makes it a little bit more complex when you're trying to manage that. So Sabrina asked, where's the live audience in attendance in the Teams webinar? Live audience would be, I guess, would be kind of in person. So you'd have to do a different count, but they could pre-register for that. Virtual would be like where we are, kind of all behind our screens for today. What do you suggest would be the ideal setup for a live audience? We are going to get into that, and I'm running, golly, y'all, I'm running out of time, so we're going to get into that. I swear we have so much content and so little time. So the next thing I want to show you just real quick that you can do when you're balancing these two audiences is PowerPoint Live. By a raise of hands, can you please raise your hand if you have used PowerPoint Live as an option before? Because I just need to know how much I need to explain it. I'm looking to see if there's any hands. Okay, is it the same two people that have used PowerPoint Live? Oh my goodness. Okay, we got a couple more, just a few. That was, we're going up and down. It looks like only two people, I'm thinking, ish, have used it. PowerPoint Live, this is great. That's why I'm sharing my screen. So you should be able to see this. If you have your phone next to you, which I know you do, let's get ready because I want you to be able to see this and experience this and engage with this. This is your opportunity. So the nice thing is if you have a live audience, that being an in-person, if there's actually somebody here in the room with you, then you can use this as a feature, okay? So as you can see, I have my PowerPoint online, office.com. Y'all put everything there. PowerPoint online is, PowerPoint Live is there. To start the live, I would just select Present Live. So it's going to pull up a screen here. I'm going to grab this link once it loads. It's thinking about it. It's processing. I'm going to grab a link and I'll post that link in the chat. In addition, when it's done thinking about it, it's going to come up with a QR code. So if you have your phone handy, you can just pull up your camera on your phone and you can hold it over that QR code. This is another option to allow those attendees to be able to engage. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to bridge the gap between audiences that are maybe in person and maybe attending from a screen. This allows everybody to join from their phone so that they can see the slides, so that they can engage. You can absolutely use PowerPoint Live for teaching for whatever you want. So I'm seeing people are joining. So I'm going to go ahead and scan it too. And let me pull up my camera. So see, I'm following too. Pulling that up. So we've got 21. So I see people still scanning. The link is in the chat. It's most useful to do by your phone. So you can imagine if you're attending a conference and you wanted to have some sort of a live transcription or maybe multiple languages. If you're working in a class and you have some students that are learning from you and they speak different languages, PowerPoint Live is going to enable you to better connect with all of your audiences. So I see we're still joining. I'm going to leave it up for just a second longer. You're already using some of the features. That makes my heart so happy. We're going to go over those in just a second. Office.com is where we went to get to PowerPoint Live. So from Office.com, I had my PowerPoint saved online as opposed to my desktop. It was saved online, and from there, just like in the Teams meeting for webinar, it's the upper right far corner, and you select that little drop down and it'll say Present Live. And from there, it's going to allow this level of engagement. So some people are joining or leaving. We're not sure, but y'all hang on. If you haven't joined, you can try clicking the link because I do think this is a great tool to be able to use. So let's see how Amanda can progress the slides here. No, show slides. The big red button at the bottom right corner is what you push to show your slides. I know, we're all in this together. Feel free to use those emojis because I might need to laugh at myself a little bit. So we'll just go ahead and throw a few out there. But PowerPoint Live, it lets you see everything in one place and allows you can scroll back. If you look at the upper portion of your screen, you can scroll back in time if you needed to review any of the content on previous slides. So you can go back and say, okay, wait, what was that poll question that she asked? You can go back and review any of those slides. So this is just, now that I think most of us are on here, I want to talk about a little bit about the functionality as we're looking at it on our phones so that you can see this. The accessibility option on your phone, this allows this transcription that you should be able to see if you're on your phones, if you're some of the ones that joined us. It allows transcription to happen. So if you look, I've tried to make the icon on my slides here as similar to what you see on your phone. It looks like a little letter A at the bottom left of your phone. You can select that icon and it's going to pull up 60 different languages. And if you just want, just for funsies, you can click on that and have my voice translated into a different language. So if you're dealing with a large conference, even if people are there in person, English may not be their first language. It may be helpful to them to have this as an option to join and be able to follow along, especially if you're presenting research or something complex where it's just not as easy to navigate some of that language. So let me get off finish here and get back to English. So you could try that. The interaction, that's what I would love for y'all to engage with. At the bottom of your phone, there's a little smiley face. If you want to click that little smiley face, that's going to allow you to, there they are. That's going to allow you to do those little emojis. So when you're presenting, if you're teaching in class, I don't know, Karen, I've heard that a lot of students don't always turn on their cameras. And so this might be, it's anonymous. I can't see who's posting these. It just might be a quick way to check. And you could say, does everyone understand what I'm saying? If so, give me a thumbs up right now. And it can be a quick, okay, there's some thumbs. Okay, so be a quick check to say, to see the pulse of how people are understanding or following you. Does anyone need a break? Then you could say, insert this emoji if you need a break. It's just a quick way to kind of get that pulse of the attendees and to be able to see what their needs are. Okay, so and then what's neat about this too is the evaluation aspect. So on the three little dots, see I made the dots, see how it all relates? Three little dots on screen, three little dots on your phone. You can click on that evaluation tool and you can rate that presentation, be nice. So you can rate that and then when you click on the stars, it's going to pull up a secondary screen so you can get feedback on slide design, speaker skill, content, all of these details so that if you want to know how you're doing with that audience and get a quick survey, both from the people that are live in person or remote, everyone should be joining and participating. It doesn't matter if you're right there standing right next to the speaker, we should all be able to connect and have that kind of evaluation. So that's why this is a useful tool. We're going to get into some best practices now, and we'll follow along on this screen too. I know that this is likely a little bit small. We do have a link to it. I think Dennison in just a second is going to be able to post that in the chat as well. So we have a link to this document that I created that's going to allow you at a quick glance, if you are a checklist person, then you're going to be able to, at a glance, be able to look and see what some of the best practices are for these hybrid meetings and some things that you can put into place to ensure that everybody is included and understands what's happening. I did see one quick comment on, it went away, where'd it go? Can the survey be customized? I have not played around with it where you can. I did see some, because this is just kind of their pre-built thing. I saw somewhere, and I haven't played with it a lot, but that you could embed your form survey too. So if you have a more elaborate survey, you can embed a link, but I haven't played with that yet. So I know you probably can't read all these details because it's probably smaller on your screen, but we do have this link. We will send it out. Denison's got it in the chat for us too, the UT link/hybrid guide, and it's going to have all these best practices. So some basic things that you can do are like sharing the agenda in advance. Let people know what's going to be happening, what we did earlier, setting those expectations for how we're going to engage, having a moderator. So through those meeting options, you can set somebody who can respond to chats and can kind of look for that cue. If there's a lot of hands raised, Denison was ready to say, Amanda so-and-so has a question, Amanda so-and-so has a question, and keep that cue in line so that while you're presenting, you're not having to also navigate there and be able to manage that. So we talked about setting those meeting options, registrations in advance so you know who's coming, how to prepare for them, what their needs are, merging all the slides into one deck. If you've trained with me on Teams Live or done anything, it's so much easier having it all in one place, especially let's just imagine if there was a panel with me today of other presenters and we're all just getting up and, you know, sitting in front of the camera if we wanted to present in this kind of virtual environment. Maybe the hybrid meeting would just be the speakers are in person and the audience is all remote. Well, the speakers would be able to come and rather than having to pull up their individual slide decks, it's all just right there. And for accessibility needs, it's really helpful to have access to that slide deck where people can view and follow along. Another benefit of this PowerPoint Live, if you're still on it, is that you can go back. If there was something that was unclear, you can always go back and follow up with that so that you can get clarity. Okay. Oh, it says reconnecting. Okay. Turning your camera on is really helpful for, you know, this presentation and sharing your screen. We said you can use your tablet to whiteboard if you're trying to share ideas. Using those polls and questions are a key way to engage your audience. To be inclusive, because if this is a recorded and somebody doesn't necessarily join right now for the live session, it's very helpful to verbally repeat those questions. Even if somebody is in the room with you and asks a question, let's pretend that we're in a large conference room, to verbally repeat that just ensures that, one, you're confirming what that individual said to you, and two, you're ensuring that that virtual audience can hear and understand. Even if you have people in the same room and virtually, it's helpful to have them all join on the Teams meeting because you get access to this chat. So you'd have to imagine if you were sitting in a chair in a room, you still want to participate and engage in this chat. And so by joining either the PowerPoint Live or by joining the Teams session, then you're able to engage in that chat and still see the questions that are being asked and be able to get those answers. So while you can, so Olivia asked, so while you can still see the PowerPoint in the webinar Teams, PowerPoint Live is more for accessibility and interaction. Yes, it allows increased accessibility and interaction. It's far more helpful to kind of gauge how you're doing, to have those responses and to be able to allow for people to go back, review that information. So yes, it's far more accessible feature for attendees. Okay, let's see. Denison, I'm going to try to beat you. We're due for our next poll here. Haha, got it. So you'll get another poll pop up in just a second. True or false, when a person attends in person during a hybrid event, it eliminates the need for them to, what? I cut that one off. To join the Teams meeting. Quickly, hold on. Something happened. I'm going to see if I can edit it really quickly. Okay, or maybe y'all can just, sorry. It's to join it. It eliminates the need for them to join the Teams meeting. We'll just fill in the blank, okay? If they're in person, do they still need to, does it eliminate the need for them to join a Teams meeting? Sorry about that little issue. I don't know what happened there, but part of my text decided to not appear. So I'll go ahead and submit that if anyone was able to understand that. More power to you. I'm so proud of you for overcoming these challenges. So when you're in person during a hybrid event, you still want to join those Teams meetings. You still want to participate in PowerPoint Live because you want access to the chat, because you want to be able to engage with individuals. So sorry about my issue there, but we've got it. So great job. Okay. Let's see. Okay. This is a lot of information. I know it is, so we're just going to kind of go over, I went over some of it, but this is breaking down that guide for us into a little bit more bite-sized pieces, trying to put all of the pieces of the puzzle together for a hybrid meeting. So I think we went over all of this, but I'm just going to scan, turning on captions or transcriptions and recording the session is always beneficial because it allows people who missed or maybe missed a portion or misheard a portion to enable them to be able to jump back on and rewatch. And so I think that we've gone over all of this, answering questions. This is a good tool too, to try to alternate answering the questions of the people who might be with you in person versus virtual. So you want to make sure, I know if we had a live audience, if there was a classroom behind me instead of walls, if there was a classroom back there, I'd want to be able to call on a person, look at them and be able to provide, repeat the question and provide an answer, and then look at the camera. So it does require you a little bit more navigation if you were hosting this, this dual-purposed seminar or meeting to be able to navigate between both of those audiences. Okay, let's see. Olivia asked if attending, oh, I'm going to tell about the camera. I know there's only 2 minutes. If attending in person, are you supposed to join both the Teams meeting and PowerPoint Live or just one of them? That depends on kind of the rules of engagement for what you want. I'm showing you the tools that are available so people are able to use that or not. Okay, I'm going to talk about equipment. One more poll. Dennison, can you launch that for me while I get other stuff ready? You've got it handy. We are just about to talk about equipment.
Again.
Oh, not able to see it. Let me see. Let's see if it got cut off too. Launching now, Dennison. Sorry. Gotcha. We're going to talk about equipment next, and I'm going to stop sharing just so I can move some things around here for my purposes while y'all answer that question. And this last equipment piece will not take very long, but the question was, which of the following options allowed for increased accessibility for hybrid events? Accessibility, so is using PowerPoint Live, and you can answer multiple, verbally repeating the questions, using live transcription, sharing slides in advance, recording the meeting, setting meeting expectations. So which of those do you feel are ways to increase that accessibility? We'll go ahead and see. Actually, all of them. All of them are ways that you can make sure every person is able to receive, digest, and process your content. It's a general best practice to be able to use some of these features routinely so that people can gather that content. So slides in advance, that's helpful for people that might have any visual or hearing complications that need to see it in writing first, or to see those graphics in order to be able to process it, but all of those help with accessibility. So, okay, I'm going to click on it there. Done. Dennison, can we get everybody's enable cameras and whatnot? And I'm going to share one more thing here. The P15 is what I have and what I am using for purposes of this session. So I'm going to just do a quick demo. I know people are having to run. I'm so sorry. I went over. There's just so much. So just real quickly, because there is so much, we are going to be putting on a mini series so that we can have these smaller sessions and be able, we're going to have one all on equipment, one all on accessibility, one all on what other universities are doing. And that's going to be coming out between July and August. So we're going to have some of these quick videos. So, okay, Dennison, are we able to get cameras on or not? I don't see that happened yet. So
All cameras should be enabled now.
okay, so feel free if you would like your camera on. Oops, Let's see, I broke the machine. I broke the machine. Okay, it's back. All right. If you would like your cameras on, sorry about that. I kicked you off. That's not my intention. If you'd like cameras on, you can have cameras on. I'm going to show you, this is the camera that I'm using currently. I know you can't see the actual camera because it's in use, but this is the camera, and I want to show you some of the fun things that you can adjust just on the fly. So changing that brightness, y'all, you can watch, let's see, and it gets really scary, right? Look at that. Whoa. Okay, so you can change all of these features within your meeting. So if you do have a large group, you're able to make these adjustments on the fly. Now here's the most exciting part. I'm going to change the tracking mode to group. So what, did you just see that? It moves with me. So if you want to, let me spotlight me for just a second so that you can see. Okay, perfect, spotlighted so you can see. So if you're presenting and you had really important content that was worth walking around and talking about because you wanted the audience to be able to see things, you can move and be able to, it's a little, I have it lower because of, I'm super tall, but you can be able to move and it's going to track with you and be able to move with you over time. In just a minute, hopefully, it'll move. Did I set it to slow? I don't know. But after time, let's see, does it hear me? It should be able to, there I am. Okay, so it'll move and track with you wherever you are. So if you're teaching in a classroom, let's say this is your whiteboard, you wanted to show some really important content, based on your voice and your movement, it's going to follow you. So now let's say, and I'm moving quickly, which you shouldn't, okay, it found me. So it's going to track and move with you. This device isn't, I'm going to come closer, it's going to get really zoomy, so be warned. Okay. Not creepy at all. Okay. But this is designed to have in a conference room. So if you had multiple people sitting around in that panel discussion, you wouldn't have to get up and move in front of the camera to talk to the next person or to ask that next presenter. The camera would do it for you. So you can see, that just shows you some of the different features, and then you can change how wide or how narrow you want that depending on the size of your room. So let's see here. Pull this up. Any questions on that? I know I just kind of flew through that, but I've got a picture of it so that you can see too. So I'm going to share a different screen, and y'all feel free. I know we're running out of time, so I know that there's questions, but let me throw this picture out there for y'all to take a look at it. So this is what it looks like. It goes on top of a computer, so it just kind of hangs on there. It has this little claw. It hangs on. It's pretty sturdy. My cats have not knocked it off yet. It has great optics, wonderful audio, so it can pick up. It has a built-in speaker, so you don't have to buy extra equipment. It's all built into this one device, and it just plops up. It's maneuverable, so if you need to move it from conference room to conference room, you can, if that's something you need, but generally you can affix it even to a wall and be able to pan out on all of those seats to see everybody. And then it does have that noise blocking technology, so if your cats are wandering or your children come in, it helps to block that out and keep it just on who is presenting and speaking. And then it does allow, you can zoom in and out and play with all of the different settings so that if you're trying to share a group discussion with a virtual audience, it is available there. So I'm looking now to see questions. Question on multiple spotlight. You can now do multiple spotlight. I see cameras on, so I'm going to pick on a couple of people here because y'all are my friends. Julie, I'm going to spotlight you. Andrew, let's see, where'd you go, Andrew? Oh, no, there, okay. We're just showing off the multiple spotlight feature too, so that if you did want multiple people to be able to show up at once, you can see and have your panel discussion there. So, okay, I'll stop picking on you by stopping the spotlighting there. And so this particular model that I was showing you is really more for kind of a smaller, maybe a group of 50 or so, a size room. just because of the depth and breadth that it can go. We have some other models that we've been testing and that we've put in to some rooms, and we are testing them in OIT now to see and make recommendations. I don't have a full list of those yet. That's why we're doing these additional sessions. So if you have a room that's larger that you would need to equip for this, then that would be something to consider purchasing. It's not provided by UT Dallas. We do have recommendations based on what we know works really well with teams and works well with the university environment and know the software and everything that's set up. Classrooms are not set up because that's different than, that's all provided by ETS and e-learning. So a little bit different environment and needs there. This would be something that we would recommend for meetings, conferences, that sort of thing. So more of the event focus than teaching focus. And I think Dennis asked, how much does this run? I didn't pull the spec exactly, but I believe it's $500 to $600, which I know sounds like it's a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but it's a one-time purchase and your whole conference room is equipped and ready to go for you. The other thing that I was going to mention, and I know we're way out of time, but we're also recommending getting a Teams conference room license for your conference room, and that's something we're going to go over in more detail. But what that allows you to do, essentially, just the real short synopsis, is you can have your device, have that room be kind of like an attendee. So it can just join your meeting. And so you can just directly join from your laptop, have that room, the camera, this one that we're showing, have that join and be able to be the lead of the meeting and have participants come and still be able to join and to see the in-person people around the table in that conference room and be able to participate. So that's the real, oops. Security warning. That's weird. So I know we're out of time. I'm going to hang out here for a few more minutes, but for those before you all have to drop off and run, if you have feedback, we would love to have that on today's session. My cat's trying to escape. Any feedback, if you want to scan this QR code, I think Dennison is also going to throw something in the chat there for our future sessions, as well as the link to the survey. In this survey, it's not just a feedback on the presentation, but we are actively trying to understand other departments' needs, as well as any best practices that you have experienced or that you've come up with. A neat one that I heard about the other day was for a graduation ceremony. At the end, they had everybody muted, but then at the very end, they had everyone unmute and clap. So just so the graduates could feel the energy within that room and to make it feel a little bit more normal. And it's just those small actionable items that can make such a big difference when we're kind of reformatting the landscape of how we do events. So if you have ideas, we would love to hear those. We've studied, researched, and tested a lot of these features, but we by far are not the only experts on campus, and I know you all have great ideas, so I welcome those. All right.